Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of SEOs Getting Coffee. Today, Emina and I are joined by Katherine. Katherine, thank you so much for coming to join us on SEOs Getting Coffee. We have so many things that we can talk about with you as a guest, with your huge career in the digital marketing industry. So we're really excited to have you. Thank you very much. I'll let you introduce yourself to the audience. So yeah, please, Katherine, take it away.
Making me feel old. So I'm Katherine Ong. I have been on the internet for a long time. I weirdly was in a college that had a build your own website class in '94. So I've been on the internet since '94, but I didn't find internet marketing until later in life for some reason. So I run my own consultancy. It's called WO Strategies. I'm really passionate about making sure good science is found in Google, which means I'm very concerned about the AI stuff that's going on as a side note. And so I tend to work with enterprise level science and education focused websites. So not e-commerce, but huge websites that are trying to get information based content out there. And I think we're moving on year 9 of my own business. Before that, I ran the online marketing and analytics team for Ketchum, servicing their clients globally, the big PR firm. And so got a chance to build out and support HHS for the healthit.gov website and strategy, promoting electronic health records here in the US, and worked with a bunch of other big federal .govs as well. So yeah, big websites, information-based. That's really kind of my weird niche.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Yeah, and thanks for joining us. It's great to have you. I think, well, today, what we're going to attempt to focus on is soft skills and SEO, but also how that kind of crosses over and how it's really important for enterprise SEO as well. And we have a whole load of questions around, especially I know as well as your experience with like large scale site migrations and things like that as well. So we've got a real mixed bag, I guess, but we're hoping that we can kind of draw it all in and kind of make it all make sense. But and we'll try and do that. So we'll start with the soft skills, I guess, soft skills in SEO. I mean, the way that we usually like to start is obviously just defining for the audience, just for our beginner listeners who are starting a career in SEO or starting a career in the digital marketing industries. Really, is what's really meant by the term soft skills. Katherine, if you could give us a brief definition, that'd be great.
Yeah, some beyond getting good science in Google, my other passion is making sure that somebody in the industry, I guess it's going to be me, helps people develop the soft skills they need to be successful as a digital marketer. Because I'm working on 18 years, I think, in SEO. And my big challenge has never been, you can go to the shows and you can learn about sheet formulas and grab a checklist for technical and understand how to audit JS websites. And like the industry's got that covered. What they don't have covered is if you end up working with a large enterprise website, either in-house or as an agency, and you provide recommendations and there's a tech queue. Like, how do you get it pushed through the tech queue? Or even before that, maybe you submit your recommendations that are kind of in your head mission critical to the client and the developer doesn't believe you and pushes back. I've had people have probably heard me on other shows, but I had a developer once who argued with me about 301 redirects during a migration. Shoot me. So I've kind of experienced it all at this point. But I just don't think the industry talks about it enough. And so when I have my own podcast, Digital Marketing Victories, I got pitches all the time about, I have this cool victory. I get you. I want to know about the soft skills part, the people part. How did you persuade people to be successful? I don't want to learn about I don't know, your spreadsheet for, advertising, whatever. I want to know, hey, yeah, we had this great idea. We presented it to the client. It was actually challenging. They didn't want to do it, or we had to do some testing to prove we wanted to do it. That part I am more interested in. So soft skills can be a wide variety of things. So it's all about whatever helps you persuade people. So it can be, do you have good public speaking skills? Do you know how to present to your target audience? Do you know who your target audience is? Like internally, like, are you presenting to the CEO of the company or the marketing leader? It could be, are you controlling your own emotions? Are you too anxious to be able to persuade people effectively? Are you controlling, your emotional response to things? Are you resilient with change? Like the most recent episode is actually an author. This is going to go out this next month. She's written this book called Uncertain, which I think is perfect for our industry. How do you deal with
Yeah.
uncertainty, right? Like, how do you deal with That's fascinating. It was a great conversation. But anyway, so it can be a wide variety of stuff, which is why on my website, I actually have a mind map for you to kind of figure out. And I'm going to be launching a checklist. So you can say, hey, do I have these skills covered? And if not, where do I go? Both on the show, like listen to this episode about it, as well as go here to learn more about whatever that soft skill is. So I'm building out both of those. But currently you can see the mind map and you can go, hey, I have an anxiety issue. And so, oh, there's that episode, and it will hyperlink over to the episode.
Yeah, I've seen it. It looks really, really great. I think you
Yeah,
posted it on the Women in Technical
I did.
SEO.
Yes.
Yeah,
You guys are my little focus group. Like,
yeah.
hey, does this work for other people? Is this weird? And everybody's like, no, it's helpful. I'm like, good. I thought it was helpful too. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, no,
But
it's
yeah.
super helpful. And you know, I was looking at it also. There's this whole, I don't know if you've added it, but there's this whole kind of angle of neurodiversity that comes
Yeah.
in that's interesting to explore. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm with you.
definitely.
So in enterprise, as we said, enterprise is absolutely complex. You have these, like, you're working at scale, you have so many stakeholders, there's a push and pull always, somebody wants one thing, red tape all over the place. I know that you have lots of experience with that as well. It would be great to kind of know what are some of the critical things that you need to cover if you're working with enterprise organizations. What are some of the kind of soft skills that are particularly helpful when
Yeah. I mean,
working
I
with big?
think I've already inadvertently talked about them because they're right on the tip of my tongue. But yeah, most of my, especially the last decade, have been enterprise level sites. And then I personally like to build SEO capacity inside these organizations because they're big enough where they actually need an internal SEO, to be honest. Like an agency is never going to really support them. And they have so much internal, what I call herding the cats. They've got so much stuff and moving internally. They need help inside. So when I started working with National Cancer Institute, for instance, when I did the audit, it turns out they had 150 different subdomains on different CMS platforms run by different departments.
Oh my God.
Which is actually not the worst. Because when I worked with fisheries, I found, I think, 650 different subdomains. It gets really gnarly on the Fed
The
side.
public sector is notorious for that. Yeah.
No, none of them were performing except for the main website, of course. Or on the cancer.gov site anyway. But even amongst that, so if you just take their main website, they had such a process for making sure the content was accurate. Like the writing process was really well documented because it's a YMYL site, and they knew that even before they knew what YMYL was, right? And so they have this strict editing process. And so how do you even interject the SEO into that process, right? To make sure that you've adapted that. And you've got the people that are dead set in what they do. Anyway, a lot of moving parts. And so for them, I actually helped them hire an SEO because it was really clear, like, as an outside person, I'm never going to be able to help you move all these pieces. You need somebody in the office, you know? But anyway, so from a soft skills perspective, I think the things that I've noticed that are the most important is knowing who you're presenting to and what format and what language they're going to respond to. Did a lot of work at Ketchum, which I don't get a chance to do quite as much because I'm solo. But when I was working with my boss, Tim, and by the way, I joined Ketchum because Tim was great with soft skills. So there's a whole reason I joined Ketchum. But we would actually practice what we were going to say, even for internal meetings. He was really strategic about, let's make sure our messaging is perfect, to even persuade other PR people in our office to get the end goal done. So he's very like a chess game. And sometimes that's what you honestly need to do. I think great writing skills, writing, presenting, public speaking, the three are huge. And I think for women, there is this confidence problem, which I have been lucky that I had a weird background growing up. So I don't particularly feel like I have the confidence problem. If anything, I have the double bind problem. So the double bind, which is probably in the UK as well as here, is that even if you are smart and accurate, if you talk about yourself in a positive way, men think you're bragging, even though it's accurate. And I'll give you an example because I shared it on Facebook. I was like, this is like perfect example of the double bind. Simone Biles, who, the Olympic gymnast, she actually has a quote saying, if I share with people that I'm the world's leading female gymnast, they'll say I'm boasting. No, actually, I am. It's definitively, I'm the world's, and so women can't even say that. She can't even say that. Anyway, so that's obviously my problem. But I think there's a whole host of women that just have other confidence problems to even get to the state where I am. And confidence is a big piece of being effective in persuading people. And there's a unique pivot to that when you're in a uncertain world, which we'll be talking about with this next episode. But obviously you're trying to present data that's mushy and you're presenting recommendations in a world that's changing. And then I guess that might be the last piece, is handling the stress of that. So I think people should be vetted before they end up in our industry to make sure they can handle that. But I don't think that necessarily always happens. And what if you've decided you do like the industry, but you're struggling with that part of the industry? I think that's a soft skill, actually. That's called resilience. And so there's multifacets of resilience, which I'm kind of digging through with different people on the podcast. But I do think it's a skill you need to build in an industry like ours. Your job changes often, like the industry, the search engine algorithms change often. You might actually literally change jobs. And so if you want to survive in this industry, if you want to thrive, I think being resilient is a big piece of it.
Yeah, and one of the things that you kind of mentioned and that came out, and is this kind of presenting data and knowing who you're presenting to and being able to communicate that. Mm-hmm. Is there like a room of, let's talk a little bit about team structures and whether there is a room somewhere, because not everybody is good at that. We've had people who are incredible in terms of technical, but you put them in front of a client and it's difficult. There's not enough communication flexing. So you have to kind of build those skills. How would you solve that in a big corporate, for example? Would you necessarily go and try and train them? Do you kind of approach that from when you're hiring for a role? Are you saying those are the skills that somebody has to have? Or is there something that you can do in a team structure where you kind of have this level of skills that are technical and not as soft, and then you have this on top, which happens in agencies a lot. I mean, with account managers, for example, which personally pisses me off because I think you should always have both. So in an agency, you absolutely have to have both. Otherwise, your account manager is just a salesperson, which for me is terrible. It's a waste of everybody's resources. But yeah, what's your advice there? How do you kind of handle these situations?
Yeah. So interestingly, the research shows that if you have a diverse team, you get to better outcomes, which you'll get from the author that I just interviewed. So I do like teams that are diverse. We had one at Ketchum. I was always when I was managing my team, I was always under the impression that what's most effective is to let people shine in whatever thing they're good at. So I actually pulled a team member from another team because he was floundering. He was just doing PR stuff. But I discovered that he was really into electronic dance music and was a little bit of an influencer. Like he had his own blog. I'm like, oh, good your own website. Great. Like that's something I can build on. And then weirdly, he went to school for accounting. I was like, oh, I can use your Excel skills. Right. I can use come on over. I'll figure it out.
You can give me the contact later.
Yeah. And he was amazing because he had experience running a website on the internet. He actually helped us develop the brand voice for New York State of Health, the Obamacare exchange. Because he was like, we don't have this. I think this is what it should feel. I mean, so anyway, he took the lead. He was great. So no, I don't think everybody particularly needs to have the soft skills, but there has to be somebody on the team because you're going to be presenting to a client one way or the other, and you have to know how to handle it. You also have to know, for instance, we have 2 episodes that talk about how to deliver bad news. There's a tip. There are tactics to doing that correctly. That's also a skill you need to know. I do think, though, there's some soft skills that I talk about, like curiosity and the ability to figure things out. Both of those I would vet for before somebody came on my team, because obviously that's like key to what we do, and a desire to learn, right? In general, love to learn, like that has to be essential to what we do. So hopefully when somebody ends up in the industry, they don't have those skills lacking. But those would be essential for my team. Otherwise, no, I don't think everybody necessarily needs to be trained on soft skills. But as you progress throughout your career, if you either want to be in management or go off on your own, those are skills you're going to have to pick up.
I think one of the things that I thought was quite interesting to pick up on was like, the idea of like resilience, but the idea of a lot of these soft skills is that, well, in general, I think like the positive thing is that a lot of them can be, you're not, you don't just have this number that you're stuck with. There's a lot of these things, just can be improved. And I think that's the positive really from the side of people that are kind of entering into the SEO industry, that maybe they are struggling with a couple of the soft skills things. Like maybe they're the best technical SEO that you can go to, right? And they're, they're great at the analytical work and they're great at working behind their laptop. But obviously when it comes to maybe pitching, or maybe when it comes to, sharing information or reporting, maybe that's where they lack. But I think the positive is how a lot of these things can be improved, and it's a lot of it is improved with experience, right? Is that you've demonstrated how you can pinpoint these, you can see these things in people, but that's through your career, right? And that's through your experience and having like that, you get that trained eye about, well, what to look for in people, right? And and that develops over, and maybe you have like that to start with, you have that ability, but you kind of train it, right? And you get better at it. You kind of go, oh, this guy, I see something in this person because I know that they have the interest to maintain and run a website or whatever, right? I think with some of these skills, how would you approach, or how would you suggest that people approach kind of developing them and improving on them? What are some things that people can do to kind of, I guess, identify where their weaknesses are, but also look to, how do they improve them? Is it a case of them just, jumping in and kind of, really kind of, throwing themselves in the deep end? Or is it a case of, trying to have more of a structured pathway to kind of improvement? What would you recommend?
Yeah. So I'm about to launch the assessment, which will help you kind of do a self-assessment of like, where am I at with all these skills? And then I will say, for pretty much every episode and every guest I have on my show, I dig into that. I don't let people wiggle away. I'm like, no. How would somebody work on that skill? And so every episode should have that. If it has not, feel free to flag it for me, and I'll make sure I at least put something in the show notes. But like the one that I particularly, for whatever reason, is stuck in my head is early on. I had somebody who does public speaking on YouTube. He's like a YouTuber. And we got on this tangent because I'm an extrovert. So public speaking for me, because of my weird 4-H background, I did public speaking when I think I was 7. So like, public speaking for me is not a problem because of my weird background. But how do people that are introverts get comfortable talking to people? And he had some great ideas. He talked about lunch club and a couple other ways where you could, have regular practice of talking to people in a low stress environment, right? So not like, not something related to your job that's stressful, but lunch club is literally just chatting with people, and maybe you get a new business lead out of it, and maybe you're just chatting for the sake of chatting, so it's very low stress. So hopefully every episode has had something like that, where I give you an actual thing to go do to practice it.
Good.
That's brilliant. I have a question coming back to kind of the enterprise side of things. Obviously, you have a ton of experience, and one of the experiences that you kind of mentioned is doing a massive web platform migration for the proceedings of the National Academy of Science Journal. Now, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, because it sounds absolutely amazing in terms of, like the complexity of it. And I know that soft skills come in really handy, particularly with migration. So give us the gist.
So I'm a little different in that I do like to build internal SEO capacity, which means I train and coach a lot. It's just a piece of what I do. And so everybody who works with me goes through a set of training. Now, for these large academic journals, the technical SEO is killing them. Oftentimes it's not the content quality, it's not the authority, it's technical. And so I've actually trained both of them in technical SEO, which, by the way, if you're going to do that from scratch, it turns out to be at least 2 sessions, an hour and a half to 2 hours each, because there's a lot to cover, as you might know. But anyway, and it's not, obviously, they're not going to be diagnosing every single JavaScript site, but at least they've got the basics of everything. And what's great is the first one that I trained, we'd been working together for 5 years, and now she's moved employers. But she was actually using Screaming Frog in the cloud, crawling on her own and ticketing her own issues. Yay! Basically stopped needing me, which is awesome. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So anyway, with national academies, I train them in technical SEO. Because oftentimes they're having conversations with the developers without me as the outside agency, and they have to know when to push back, or at least have like a little spidey sense, like maybe I need to ask Katherine about this, right? So I trained on that, as well as content quality and the whole other bits of SEO. Probably the only thing I didn't train them on is backlinks. So they don't obviously need to build any links. They had 30 million. So they're good. They're good.
Without any building. This is
right.
like the
now
top
that's all
of
natural.
the
It's just
yeah.
it's the domain authority. So yeah, the migration was challenging. So I did the normal stuff. Like, we did an audit. We had to clean up some stuff. They were moving from a Drupal instance, had some security issues and some other things going on. So we had to clean up some stuff. And then I want to say that was the migration that had a little bit of a truncated timeline. My other journal migration, they brought me on nice and early, so I got to even give some input on the design information architecture side. This one was after that. So unfortunately, they'd already locked down requirements. I tried to ship what I had, see if we could get some of the requirements in. But anyway, so the big lift was really, let's see if we can migrate this thing without losing any traffic. And we did, which is kind of crazy. Honestly, I think it's that they published some stuff that was a little popular day of, but whatever. They were happy that they lost no traffic. But the mapping was a real challenge, because these dang SEO tools will not let you export 30 million backlinks.
Yeah,
Majestic
that was
won't
my
even
question as well.
I know.
What did you use? I want to know.
You spin up Majestic and it won't even give you the whole data. Dude, I need it all. I mean, in that instance, I kind of want to do it all, right? So, we pulled from all the obvious places. We're obviously using BigQuery because we need to get as much data as possible. So we're pulling stuff from BigQuery and Google Search Console. We're doing the Google Analytics pull. And so I pull referral too, because I think that, that's valuable. So anything that shows up in referral, anything that's direct, that's not like the homepage. So it's like dark social, dark search. And then obviously organic ranking in Google Analytics. But then we spun up both Majestic, and I pulled as much as I could from Majestic, but I forget what their limits are. It was not enough. It was in the thousands. It wasn't anywhere near a million. And then the other thing I used is Ahrefs, a lot of Ahrefs. So you'd find a pattern, you're like, oh, that's a new pattern I haven't seen yet. And you can use the filtering in Ahrefs, and you're like, there we go. There's all the URLs with that pattern. Pull that one. So then we lucked out in that too. Both of these journals are on the same, they moved from the same old company to the same new company, if that makes sense. They had different project managers, but I had seen some of these patterns before, and they had like an automatic mapping thing that they were running, which didn't catch all the patterns, but some of them were baked in there. And we got to add a couple more, which helped. But then these are both technology companies that don't understand SEO. So when I was working with the first journal, the platform's like, oh, what's this Screaming Frog thing? And then they try to crawl on their own machine, which is funny because these websites are 3 million pages. So, they're like, how do you do this? It keeps crashing. Yeah, it will. Try crawling in the cloud. And of course, we could have used like Deep Crawl or Luma or whatever. It's just expensive. Screaming Frog and Google Cloud was way cheaper.
Sidebulb have a cloud one now. I haven't tried it, but Sidebulb has a cloud enterprise one that's apparently quite good. Digression.
Yeah. If I can afford those, I definitely use those in this case.
Yeah.
I mean, both of these are technically nonprofits. So they don't particularly have the budget. It's a new thing for them to pay for too. I mean, that's the other thing. It's like, even when I was working with the federal government, you're like, well, you clearly need a rank tracking tool, but they've never had a budget line item for anything with SEO. So you're like, okay, let's start with SEMrush. And it just feels awkward because they have 260 different cancer types. Like obviously they need like an enterprise level tool, but they're not going to use it. They have to be able to use it. So it's like, okay, well, let's spin up this month-to-month subscription, I guess, to get you something. But yeah, so I mean, then I pulled in friends because you have a truncated timeline and 30 million, URLs to match. So there were 3 of us in there. So I have a couple technical SEOs that I think are top notch that I pull in on projects. So yeah, we're all in the same sheet. I wish, like I keep watching all this using Python, pattern matching, et cetera stuff. And like none of it worked. Like I tried and none of it, I couldn't get it to work. So unfortunately, it was manual, which is insane. Like we manually map them in URLs, but that's what we did.
Yeah, that's really because we've had like a big enterprise level client come to us, and we're in the process of talking to them about a migration, and they're switching from like so it's e-commerce, so they're switching from Magento to Shopify, and obviously everything is different, kind of like how Shopify presents collections and products and stuff. It's so different than Magento, so everything needs to be mapped. So I know your pain. I'm currently in it, trying to like figure out what the best way of doing it is, because you're right, it's about kind of like matching the patterns and seeing. That's the only way that I can think of doing it as well. Otherwise, you're talking about like millions of pages.
And I have developers so I don't do Python because at some point I just can't continue to self-teach myself stuff. I'm just too busy. So, I have a Python person. I have a spreadsheets person who's like a whiz at whatever. So we tried some fuzzy matching. We tried some Python-ish stuff and just none of it was accurate. I was like, this is not helpful. So yeah, I'm always looking in the industry. I'm like, ooh, did that work? Can you use AI to do this? I don't know, because it's bloody painful. But I haven't found anything accurate that worked in this situation. And it was because like even the article URLs were changing and there was just so much movement with structure from old to new that the systems couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you were saying. And, coming back to this whole idea of soft skills, it's being honest, like about kind of the challenges and what you did there, asking, bringing in the team to help out. It just feels so important.
Knowing
one
the
of the
limitations
pieces of resilience. Yeah, one of the pieces of resilience is having a community. That's actually a piece of the soft skills. And I mean, this is where I plug the Tech SEO Women's Group, because I personally would have not tackled a website. I mean, so the feds were like 500,000 pages or so. But it's a jump to go from 500,000 to 3 million. It's also a jump to kind of do a migration of that scale. And I would have not done it if I didn't have the Women in Tech SEO group. I honestly was like, I think I can do this, because if I get stuck, somebody in the community will help me out. And I've had people spin up like a web call and help me out for free for an hour to troubleshoot stuff. I mean, that community is amazing. Yeah. Anyway, that's why I decided I could go for it, was that I felt like I had the help.
Oh, that's amazing. And I agree. I feel the same about it. I'm a newish member. I've been for now a year or something. But yeah, it's kind of like I knew about it for ages and only joined about a year ago because of this. And you were saying about the confidence kind of and technical SEO and, upskilling myself to feel comfortable. And now I'm like, why didn't I do this before? I mean, it would have helped. Like I've been doing all of these things on my own for no reason. Really. So
it's a testament though to how I think communities are becoming more popular, I guess, and people are and as a way, but obviously with the general story of what's going on with how people find their information these days, and we all know about that. But I think it's just a testament to how a community can be like a positive place, and how it can be a positive experience for everybody that's a part of it, rather than the generally bad rep in SEO is that you have a community, but often it's it can be quite difficult to be a part of because it's often very negative, and it doesn't leave anybody with a positive experience. So I think these more kind of like private communities are just way more positive, especially when they're more supportive. And it's a testament to show that it can be actually, but positive for everybody, and it actually works, and it actually works to help people in the SEO industry help each other, which I think the main thing a lot of the time that people, do forget about SEO is that, well, it's not all a competition, it's not all like, there's plenty of businesses out there that we all need, that we can help, and there's plenty of people to kind of help them. It's just that let's help each other kind of, give a better name for SEOs, but also, a better name for the industry, and, create a much more kind of positive, environment. And I guess that goes hand in hand with the enterprise SEO in a way as well, is because people, like a lot, because there's so much red tape, and like with the AI advancements, I mean, how long until these certain things are going to be implemented in massive kind of, companies or enterprise companies and things, it takes a long time, they play in catch up constantly. So it's yeah, go ahead, interject.
No, I mean, you would be surprised. So my enterprise nonprofit people are implementing AI. Yeah. I mean, first of all, they were doing it sort of on the sly. So I was helping both. This is why you can find on my blog, I have a employee AI policy, for instance, because I don't think people are thinking about that. Like, make sure your employees don't share social security numbers with chat, that kind of stuff. And it came out of this conversation with a nonprofit. I was like, wait, have you guys thought about this? I will draft something. I'm not legal at all, but I'll at least give you the things you should think about, right?
Yeah.
But I train my clients on using AI. So I reworked my own workflow so that I use AI at various points throughout the workflow. I wish it was mapping. It's not for redirect mapping, but drafting meta descriptions are great, and content briefs is amazing, and so there's pieces. And so then I just made that part of my client training. And then on the flip side, I just did an audit with a new client, and they rolled out some AI thing that created all sorts of duplication. It's fabulous. So I mean, they'll try things. Might not be very strategic on the SEO side, but they're like, this AI thing, this is cool. Let's put that on the website. So just forewarning everybody, you might run into that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's like we could have a whole not one episode, but like 1,000 about AI. It's such a massive field, and I agree with you. I think curiosity is great, and you have to test, and you need to have a critical eye on it.
Yeah. Which is obviously what I tell my clients, because the hallucination is which is why it should not be part of search. As somebody who's concerned about accurate science being found in Google, the fact that it's YMYL queries that Google is still providing answers for, God, it gives me heartburn. It really, because there's folks like my mom who's she's 76, she's not very web savvy. And she's like, this looks accurate, but she's the one who keeps finding the apple cider vinegar crap, which is not accurate. I'm just like, no.
It's crazy. And that leads us very well into, thinking about what we want to put into the room for a fall. So, Katherine...
A very good segue, Emina. Yeah, very good. Let's move.
I mean, probably Google's AI summaries. I think I actually want to put in the room 404. If they disappeared, I would be much happier. I don't know how often they're accurate or helpful, and I agree with everybody. Half the time they're just freaking copying the featured snippet. You know what else should go in there? The fact that Microsoft CEO, head of AI, is like, oh, no, I can copy everything off the internet. That's fine. It's all open source. It's for me to copy. I'm like, no, people put work into that. There's copyright behind that. Yeah, you can't just steal our stuff. Anyway, as somebody whose website has a pretty high token count off of that New York Times article, for whatever reason, I'm sure it's because I did daily SEO tips, audio tips, which are direct question and answers. So yeah, they stole a lot of my stuff too. So I appreciate the value, I guess. And obviously, you're going to be left behind as an SEO if you don't know how to use AI chat and speed up your work process. Gotcha. But on the flip side, providing it in search, I think, is just going to spread disinformation. I don't think it's going to help in increasing accuracy of anything. And then all of us are using up all our free water to play with these tools. So the environmental impact of it also really bothers me. I don't know particularly what to do with that, but there's a lot of concerning pieces of AI that I think people are not looking at. And then you add in stuff like, the eugenics piece of the AI movement and some other things that also bother me. But at the very least, let's put the summaries into the 404.
Yes, summaries into a 410, I think.
410, right. Fully 410, yes, would be great.
It's one of those that we definitely want to be putting in.
Yeah, no, I think, it's a good addition, actually. And I think, sorry, Emina, go ahead. I think I cut out a little bit there.
It's all right. No, I was saying, definitely into a 410 with that. And one of my concerns is this infinite loop as well. The more people use AI, the more AI stuff there's going to be out there. What is the AI going to learn from itself? I mean, it's
exactly. Yeah, right?
Yeah, so there is a ceiling. There is definitely a ceiling there that we're going to be hitting. Sean, what did you want to say?
No, I was just saying, kind of wrapping up that, it's a good addition. And I think, there's so many, that's the thing. I mean, we could do like a whole kind of AI season of AI SEOs Getting Coffee, discussions with different guests, because, it's the main topic right now. And it's the one that's, has so many implications for everybody in the industry, but from ethically to technologically to everything, right? It changes the whole kind of fabric of how we're going to approach things. So but the summaries, I think we can all agree on that. That's something that hasn't really been totally thought through, has it? Thank you so much, Katherine. I think we could keep going on and talk about. I think it's been a really good discussion. I think we've managed to touch on all of these things that we set out to, from the soft skills in SEO, but how that helps enterprise SEO, but also kind of bringing that site migration discussion in there as well. We'd love to have you back at some point to kind of discuss things in more detail as well, and maybe do a specific chat on those. But thank you so much for a great chat. Where can people find you? So please, where can people find you if they listen to this? And please, mention your podcast again, and also where can people find you on socials?
Yeah. So you can find me at wstrategies.com. All of my socials are under my name. So on Twitter, I'm KWATIER. I'm also on LinkedIn, so you can and there's a YouTube channel, so feel free to follow me on any of those spots. And then one final little plug. I want to make sure that the men listening are aware that there's also a supportive community for you. And it actually is supportive. The SEO community on Slack, I'd recommend you check out. It's since I've been in the industry for almost 2 decades, this is the first time I've seen a multi-gender community that's actually supportive and not negative. So for what it's worth, go check that out.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you for the recommendation, Katherine. That's great. Emina, any final thoughts from you?
Oh, just, check out the Digital Marketing Victories podcast. It's also on my website, thewostrategies.com. And if you have a soft skill that particularly you see I've missed or you want me to cover, let me know. Or if you have a guest idea, always open for folks who are interested in being on the show.
Yeah, I'll be hitting that button for you. I've been looking at your podcast and it's super interesting. And thank you so much for coming. I mean, Katherine, I have been looking forward to having you on the podcast for a while now. When you said, "Oh, I can do it," I was super chuffed. So it's been I mean, come on, you have so much experience, and it's just, and you're really nice, which is really nice as well.
I'm from New England, so I'm actually really blunt. So I bet all my clients, I'm like, if you want me to sugarcoat something, that's just not in my DNA.
No,
so we should not work together.
Yeah, Katherine, I'm from the Balkans. I have the Balkan spirit. So I don't do the shit sandwich. I just can't do it.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of that.
So thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Podcast.
Brilliant. Thanks, Katherine.
Thank you.
And thanks, everyone. Right. We'll see you next time for another episode of SEOs Getting Coffee. Thanks for joining. Please do comment and ask us any questions in the comments, and let's start the discussion. Thanks very much, and join us next time. See you later.